welcome to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the newly released Marvel Legends Disney Plus What If Deluxe HYRDA STOMPER. And the figure has actually turned out great. Honestly, this was the figure that I was most looking forward to, probably out of all of the Disney Plus What If figures, and he looks fantastic. It's super awesome to actually see him turn out as good as some of those initial promo images did make him out to be. He's not 100% perfect, and we'll touch base more with why that is later on in the video, but for the most part, this is definitely a solid 8/9 out of 10. They've really done a fantastic job. Now, before we actually take a look at the figure himself, we'll very quickly go over the accessories. So included within this pack are indeed 2 blast effects. As far as I'm concerned, these are the exact same blast effects that we've seen from some of the Iron Man figures, however this time just enlarged. I was actually quite surprised to see how big these truly are. You can see how they've been cast out of this really nice clear transparent plastic, and then of course we've got the yellow paint applied over the top in order to give you the impression that these are of course jetpack blasts, and I actually think for the most part they look really cool. They can be inserted here into the back of the fuel tanks, so you simply just peg them in there in order to give you the impression that the HYRDA STOMPER is of course in flight. And of course, much like the Iron Man figures, I actually think it works pretty decently for the most part. Sadly, they cannot be inserted into the base of the feet nor into the actual blaster that we've got here, and he doesn't actually come with any form of smoke effect, which is such a shame. But for those of you who do in fact actually own the Ironmonger from the Infinity Saga, you can take his blast effect and it is compatible with this particular weapon. So if you really wanted to, you could insert that in there, and I think it looks fantastic. But it is once again just such a shame that they didn't include any blast effects for the main cannon itself. We also do get included 2 pair of interchangeable fists, so you can see here the sculpt work for these are really nice. You can see some of the finger detailing, as well as of course all of those different panel lines, and they can be inserted really easily. So you simply just pull out one of these open palm fists, and then we can replace it here with a closed fist. And of course you've got the same hinge joint that we saw for the open arm, and that looks really awesome. But in regards to accessories, that's pretty much it, unless you count this entire jetpack, but we'll touch base more with this in just a second. Bringing the HYRDA STOMPER in here for a closer look, you can see that in regards to detail, I actually think it looks fantastic. The face sculpt is really nice. Of course, definitely has design traits carried over from some of the Iron Man figures. I definitely do get Mark 1 vibes from this, and in some areas even Ironmonger vibes, but I think the design is really nicely done. You can see of course the eyes there picked out in a slightly lighter shade of blue. You've got the mouth sculpt there looking really cool. We've got this antenna section which has been made out of a slightly more pliable piece of PVC, but scattered all the way throughout the figure, of course, you'll see various different handles of which you can attach a few different figures onto him, and I'll also showcase that later in the video. But you can see here really nice armor detail going on for the torso. Of course, we've got what appears to be an almost arc reactor. We've got some nice details going on here for the top, as well as also some nice decals such as C15, as well as this star insignia. For those of you who have checked out my Watch a Bath review, you guys know that up until this point I haven't actually watched the What If series, just as I'm waiting for all of the episodes to air so that I can completely binge watch it. So how awesome this guy actually appears on screen is to me yet to be seen. But in regards to the design, I think it looks really impressive. You can see here for the arms, very chunky. Of course, we've got these massive armor pads here for the shoulders, some nice brown detailing in order to pick out some of the sharper details of the sculpt. You can see various different nuts and bolts, and if we just lift this up, it does also reveal some further detail here to the bicep. And you can see here for the forearms, once again, very heavy infantry, loads of different nuts and bolts, as well as slats here on the side. And of course, we've got his very heavy infantry weapon, which looks really impressive. And then as we just flip here to this side, he has in fact got an asymmetrical design, so we've got no weapon on this side, but we do get what appears to be an almost tread, so maybe he can grate the faces of his enemies clean off with this. I guess I'll just have to wait and see to watch the show. But once again, very nice looking sculpt work going on here for the armor. And then as we just turn our attention down to the lower section, this almost belt piece is in fact made out of PVC. It's a separate piece and can actually become rather finicky, especially when articulating the ab crunch, but other than that, I think it looks pretty decent. You can once again see a handle sculpted there on the side. And then as we just take a look here towards the thigh region, various different nuts and bolts. The entire figure's been cast out of this super awesome army green, and I think it looks really impressive. And then as we just spin around here to the side, you can see once again more nuts and bolts, as well as here the foot design, which I will be honest and actually say is my major critique with the figure. This has been cast out of a slightly more flexible type of material, and considering how hefty this figure is, honestly the balance absolutely sucks. Unless you've got him posed perfectly, he's really not going to stay on a shelf, which is slightly unfortunate. That could just be an issue that I'm seeing here on my copy, but I'm pretty sure that considering this guy's like it, all of the other figures will also be like it. And then as we turn our attention here to the back, which of course shows us this enormous, really nicely detailed looking jetpack, I think the sculpt work looks fantastic. You can see here some of these foot pads slash pedals that you can actually put some of the other figures onto, and I'll showcase that in just a second. Of course, we've got this handle here at the top, and these actual fuel tanks look fantastic. Really impressive looking sculpt work, as well as some pretty nice looking paint apps, especially here towards the base. You can see that weathered and charred effect all looking really, really nice. Of course, we've got all of this various different tubing, as well as different hydraulics and mechanical components, and just overall, it's just such a solid, awesome looking design. For those of you who didn't like the jetpack, it does come detached out of the packaging, so you simply can just remove it. However, it will just merely reveal a flat surface with a huge peg, so of course, you're more than likely going to want to leave that tabbed in. Now, turning to the Hydra Stomper's articulation, surprisingly, despite how chunky he actually is, he's incredibly well articulated. So here for the head, this can look up to a pretty decent degree, especially considering, judging by some of the trailers I've seen, this character can actually fly, so that's definitely really, really nicely done. He can, in fact, look down to that far, as well as tilt side to side to a really good range, and then, of course, rotate the full 360. Here at the arms, these are on hinge joints, so you can rotate the full 360, as well as hinge out to the sides, due to the shoulder pads being made out of PVC. We do get a rotation here at the bicep, a single joint here at the elbow, and the same also applies here for this side, so this can bend merely to 90, but definitely not a bad range of motion. We do get a full rotation here, as well as a hinge joint back and forth. The ab crunch is in fact on a ball joint, so this can rotate left to right, as well as crunch forward and backwards ever so slightly. Honestly, it's a minimal amount of articulation, really not a heck of a lot going on there, and due to how heavy the jetpack is, it will more than likely spring back into place, so it really is just that rotation from side to side that you'll be getting out of this particular joint. As we take a look here towards the legs, due to the nature of the design, they can't really kick forwards all that far. You can see that it's not even to 90, so that is a little lackluster in my opinion. They can kick back to, I would say, about that far, as well as hinge out to the sides. We do get a rotation here at the upper thigh, as well as a single joint here at the knee, which can bend to 90. Once again, not the best, but due to the nature of the design, completely understandable. And then here for the foot, this can pivot forward, as well as backwards, and of course, rock side to side. So actually a pretty decent range out of this, but it is just a shame that these aren't made out of slightly heavier, more firmer material in order to really weigh this figure down, as he definitely has some balancing issues, at least here, as mentioned beforehand, on my particular copy. But overall, as a whole, a fantastic looking figure, poses really, really nicely, and of course, definitely looks the part. Now, as mentioned throughout this review, for those of you who own the Captain Carter figure, or pretty much any of the other Marvel Legends figures, you can actually harness her to the back. So you can see here some of the foot pedals, but I would recommend just sort of fastening the feet into, just positioning them correctly. Take the hand here, grope this around the handle, and you can kind of get her into a pose where it looks as if though she's actually mounting the back section of the Hydra Stomper. I'll be sure to post some images, of which I'm sure I'll be doing a much better job, but you can see here that it does actually work. But considering how back heavy the figure truly is, once again, it's going to be a balancing issue unless you've got this guy on a stand, or unless you crunch him incredibly far over. But definitely really nice display piece, and it's something that I'm actually really glad that you can actually do with this guy. Here for a very quick size comparison, we've got the Hydra Stomper compared next to the recently released, as well as recently reviewed over on the channel, Infinity Saga Iron Man Ironmonger, and you can see that they are very similar in terms of design as well as height, albeit the actual Hydra Stomper is just a smidge taller when in comparison to Ironmonger. And actually holding both of these in my hands, I can confirm that, at least as far as I'm concerned, the Hydra Stomper is in fact a little heavier than Ironmonger, which was actually something that I was incredibly surprised about, and it's all mainly down to the simple fact that there's just a lot more bulk going on in the upper torso, especially where the jetpack is concerned. But once again, a really, really nice looking piece, and looks fantastic amongst some of these other deluxe Iron Man-esque armors. So, some final thoughts for the Marvel Legends Disney Plus What If Deluxe Hydra Stomper. Overall, the figure is fantastic, a super awesome design captured perfectly here in action figure form. I think the attention to detail is once again incredibly impressive. The Marvel Legends truly are some of the best figures that are currently out there on the market, and that's something that perhaps I wouldn't have been able to say 3 or 4 years ago. They truly are stepping up their game, and the attention to detail in this guy is really, really impressive. I actually don't think the articulation too is all that bad, especially considering the bulky nature of the design. Of course, I would have loved to have gotten a much better range of motion out of the ab crunch and the hips, but they're all areas that would have been pretty difficult to have actually super articulated without ultimately obstructing the design. I think also he comes with a pretty decent range of accessories. Of course, we get those 2 blast effects as well as a pair of interchangeable hands. It would have been great if we could have actually gotten some blast effects for the main cannon itself. Sadly, I have had to borrow the effects taken from the Ironmonger, so that is an area which I wish was slightly improved upon. And it also would have been pretty cool if we could have gotten an interchangeable Steve Rogers head, although I believe in the show the actual torso canopy opens up, so I guess that would have been inaccurate in a way, but still would have been a nice accessory. But as it stands, I think this figure is really, really impressive, looks great, and of course will look fantastic amongst some of your other Marvel Legends, especially other figures from the What If Disney Plus wave. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I'd love to know down in the comment section below on what you guys think of this figure as well as the review. Is this one that you'll be adding to your collection? And as always, I thank you all so much for watching, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.